Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Finding the Story. My name is Nikodem and today we'll take a look at Heavenly Sword, or how I like to call it, the Bad Lives Decision Simulator. Now, sit back and enjoy while I kill every single last of the brain cells I have left. Our characters begin this episode by rejoicing over the victory they have achieved many millennia ago during the last episode of this playthrough.
You may collect the bodies of your men and give them a dignified burial.
What you see here is a recurring motive with this character. She likes to talk into the distance where nobody's listening, which represents her longing for attention that she's never gonna get because her game was awful. They could not even afford sheets, as you see in this cutscene. This in fact represents the struggle developers had to go through while making this game.
He is standing above me. He raises the sword above his head. I try to call out to him and tell him to stop, but the sword strikes down.
The father with the sword is of course the symbolism of the release date that was inevitably approaching and the horrible destiny that was going to come to this game.
But this night, it wasn't a dream. The sword is now mine to protect, and my life will change forever.
As you see, not even they are happy with how it turned out.
You are needed, Niko! Get up here!
Now, as you see, the player is so uninvested into this experience that he completely ignores all of the super obvious routes that he could go and advance the plot. However, even he cannot avoid making a bad decision in this bad decision simulator. It is made for sole purpose of making bad decisions, such as playing this game. And for some reason the choir is saying Saturday morning.
West, then make a break for the eastern cliffs, and above all, keep the sword safe.
Don't leave me! Take me with you!
Kai, you come with me!
No, Kai! Go with Father! I'll find you again! I promise!
And here our main protagonist also makes a bad decision by letting her mentally challenged sister be taken care of by her abusive parent. And this gameplay section is one of the best examples of storytelling via gameplay I have seen in a while. As you see, our characters are capable of using telekinesis. However, they decide to not use it in favor of martial arts. This is a stupid decision because everything you throw at your enemies instantly kills them. This is in fact another example of making bad decisions in life, forcing yourself to excel at something that you're never gonna be good at. Which is, in this case, is in fact God of War-esque gameplay. As you'll see multiple times during this episode, throwing objects at the enemies results in much more kills. Any sane person would decide to use their Jedi powers in order to take advantage of their enemies more efficiently, more often, or perhaps even dedicate their entire life to exceeding at fighting with your psychic abilities. They, however, brush it off and think nothing of it. They blindly follow the tradition of their ancestors just because. It's the same situation as with Catholic Church that decides to blindly follow the rules in the Bible that just don't work anymore in the nowadays world.
Well done.
This game can be seen as a social commentary on things such as physics, as you'll see in the comment section. As the enemies come here closer, you'll see how accurate the physics are to the real life ones. The extended length of this section was a deliberate choice by the developers in order to illustrate the struggle they had to go through with trying to not get this game published. However, in the end, it was all in vain as the publishers pushed through with it. No matter how much you try, there are other people coming. Here is another example of a bad life's decision. Those things had bullseyes on it, and they were designed for her to be taken care of. However, she decided to, in the end, listen to her father and...
Get away. If I'm captured, the Heavenly Sword is lost, and the clan's sacrifice will have been in vain.
She decided to, in the end, still listen to her father and not destroy it, letting the fortress be taken over. Damn physics. And here the player illustrates that our main character in fact still possesses the psychic powers she had in the turret section. And they are in fact just as deadly. Because compared to how the regular melee attacks work, you have to basically kill your enemies twice. It takes quite a couple hits to get them down on the ground, and then you still need to stab them for them to not get up. While throwing objects, on the other hand, they only need to be hit by an object once and then stabbed to the ground. So that makes the whole process much faster. And it doesn't slow the frame rate quite as much.
Ready to me when you're finished, men. Try not to hack any limbs off this time.
Two birds with one stone. As you see, compared to this man she's fighting right now, how many hits did that take compared to those guys being one shot by one flying hat? Now think about it. If she in fact equipped herself with a whole bunch of throwing knives or throwing hats, she would have had such an easier time. Though, as we have established earlier, this game goes out of its way to prove its point about its bad decisions. It implements it in the gameplay. Matters not whether or not it's going to be enjoyable for the people who are gonna buy it. They are going to go out of their way with their artistic vision, which is both commendable and should not be allowed in the future.
I hear you've been killing my men.
Headshot. Our character is not even very good at fighting in close combat. She does not even possess a button to guard. Or an easy way to tell if enemy is already dead. Or ability to mash X. Now, had she trained more with throwing barrels, she could have taken out all of those 3 people with one of them. However, because of her heritage and because of what her father told her, she still had to go to Kung Fu Club as opposed to the archery one when she was a child. This left a deep scar during her childhood. Now she has to look up her combos every now and then before she can go into combat, because while she did attend the classes for entirely of 10 years, she never enjoyed it. And if you don't enjoy something, you just never learn it.
I ain't sticking around here.
Like this man never learned to walk straight. It is also possible that our character is so ashamed that she has such a strong throwing arm compared to her kicks and slashes that she refuses to take more than one throwing object with her at the time in order to not become good at it. And now enter the most amazing character in the game.
Dear me, such a heavy sword for such a fragile creature. Come, child, let me take your burden.
Never! Leave me, Niko! Get the sword away from here! The line must not be broken!
Perhaps I'm not making myself clear. I have something of yours, and you have something of mine.
Simple one. Always wanting what you have no comprehension of. I see the years since we studied together have taught you nothing.
Shut up! Shut up. Actually, Shen, they have taught me that everything comes to he who waits, but quicker yet to he who takes.
Run, Niko!
No, that wouldn't be wise. That wouldn't be wise at all.
Take word of advice.
Every lifetime has one moment. You stand alone and you see it all so clearly. To save my father's life, I betray his whole reason for living. I know it's death I'm holding now. Did I ever have a choice?
What have you done, Niko? What have you done?
That cutscene was in fact the crowning of the degradation of her character. She made the ultimate bad decision. Not only had she thrown away her life for really nothing, because in the end, by the end of this section, she runs away like she was going to anyway, leaving her father to die, rendering her entire reason for picking up the sword that is going to kill her pointless. She could have in fact just run away, as you'll see shortly. The sword itself is in fact not that good. Throwing items is still more effective. She still is incapable of guarding herself with a button. That has not changed. Also, the fact that the sword indeed kills its owner seems to have escaped her judgment while not deciding to just give it to the bad guy. If he were going to use it, he would have died in a couple days anyway. It would have made this whole situation much easier. As it is right now, our entire journey could have ended right here without us doing anything. Again, the extended length of this section is there to symbolize the futility and dullness of her life. The way she basically extends what is inevitable. She, more than anyone, knew the effects of the sword, yet she decided to go with it anyway. Not only dooming herself, her father, and also inevitably letting it go into the hands of the bad guy. And the tutorials just barely caught on. This also is an example of a very bad decision from the side of the developers. The gameplay itself is full of bad choices. This cannot be unintentional. It was made by them in order to illustrate the main character's actions via gameplay. See? Had she carried more of those, this section would have probably been over much faster. And also, from the side of the developers, there is no easy way of telling whether or not a corpse is already dead, because they seem to be constantly moving, making everything, as it is intended to be, overly long and dull and boring. The story itself is also an example of a bad choice, as it was clearly made by two entirely different groups connected with one another with just a glory hole. As the side of the good guys seems to be written by some melancholic, overly serious Final Fantasy-esque writer, whereas the side of the bad guys seems to have been written by someone responsible for such classics as Animaniacs. As presented here. Loading, 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 loading.
Oh, it is pretty, isn't it? Yes, I like that. I like it a lot. Oh, please give it to me, or else I'll kill the old man painfully. And I can be quite inventive.
Get the sword away from him!
Kill her.
The sword does have power. I can feel it. In fact, I'm counting on it. If what is written is true, its power will soon drain my life force and it will kill me. By wielding it, I have become a ghost of flesh and blood. But really?
And here, our main character makes last revelation about the genre in which she wants to belong, yet she will never be able to.
You may be an outsider.
And here we see again the motive of our character blaming everyone for her life's decisions, for the use of textures, for her lack of use of any hair product, for the frame rate issues, the terrible V-sync, the overall not very goodness. Or maybe it was an intended social commentary on the gaming industry as it is. Or maybe I've been talking bullshit this whole time. Who cares?